Hey music nerds, fans, and maybe even bands. I'm Ivan and welcome back to another Airplane Over the Teen video. I hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to do another discography review because I had a lot of fun making the Fishmans one. I had a few artists I could have done for a second discography review, but there was one that I really wanted to do. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite bands that I don't think gets enough love, seeing as they have an album that is quite popular in the music community online. That's right. Today we're talking about American football. No, not that one. That's more like it. American Football are a Midwest emo math rock band from Illinois, started in 1997. The band was formed after the members' former band Cap'n Jazz ended. The band consists of lead singer and guitarist Mike Kinsella, guitarist Steve Holmes, bassist Nate Kinsella, and drummer and trumpeter Steve Lamos, who recently left the band, but he was a very crucial part, so I gotta include him. Now, American Football don't have much music out. They only have 3 albums and a couple EPs. So, to make this video a little longer, I want to talk about those 5 projects today. Now, without further ado, let's talk about American Football. In 1998, American Football released their debut EP, American Football. This EP introduced the band's classic math rock tinged Midwest emo sound with its 3 songs. The one with the Tambourine is an awesome opening track that I would say is pretty essential in the band's discography. And yes, it is called the one with the Tambourine. I didn't just forget what it's called. It feels like the band started pretty fully formed with their twinkly and nostalgic sound. All 3 songs on here are great, and I'd honestly say this is one of the band's most consistent releases despite its short length. There's not a whole lot to talk about for this EP, given that it's just 3 tracks, and while they're all great, they're very simple American football songs. I definitely recommend this project if you haven't heard it, and especially if you like the band's next project. After warming us up with their first EP, American Football released their debut album in 1999, American Football. Wait, wasn't their EP called American Football? That's kind of lazy, but I'm sure they won't do it again. This album is excellent, opening with one of the greatest emo songs ever made, Never Meant, which is actually my second favorite song of all time. This album is a great continuation of what they had on their debut EP. The band's able to make 9 incredible Midwest emo songs that all flow together very well. This album is perfect for staying inside on a rainy day, which is actually what inspired me to write this script. Honestly, it is probably my second favorite song on the album. It has a great driving groove, but about 2 minutes in, the whole feel changes and a spacey, fuzzed-out lead guitar washes over the whole track. Stay Home is an amazing 8-minute masterpiece that kind of got a new meaning for people during the pandemic. The band even did a long-distance performance of the song during quarantine, which I'd highly recommend if you like the song. The guitar sounds and riffs on this album are awesome and have the band's signature twinkly math rock twang to them. The inclusion of trumpet from Steve Lamos on a few of the songs really adds a cool layer to the instrumentals on this album, and I think is a pretty crucial part of the band's sound. This album is truly an incredible one, and in my opinion, probably one of the best debuts in all music. That album is so good. I can't wait to see what their next one sounds like. I hope it comes out soon. So after their first album, American Football kind of split up for a really long time. In the time that they weren't together, their debut album got pretty popular on the World Wide Web. A lot of indie music circles were pretty big fans of the album, which is super cool, and most likely the way that you, watching this video, heard about them if you know them. Finally, 17 years after their first, American Football released their second album, American Football. Wait, what? They named their second album after themselves again? Well, at least they're consistent. This album is not super interesting. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad album at all. It's just not one I listen to much. There are some awesome songs like the first 2 tracks, Where Are We Now and My Instincts Are the Enemy, but other than those, this album is just fine and not much more than that. I do really like that this album sounds much more mature than their debut, and they didn't just try to pick up from where they left off and recreate their debut. I love that Mike doesn't go for that over-the-top emo vocal style that he had on the debut, because he's an old man now, and he needs to preserve his vocal cords. The band sounds pretty different on this album, but not totally unlike their past selves. I think this album is a solid comeback, but I'd say it's an even better precursor to their next album. In 2019, American Football would continue their run of lazy album names with, you guessed it, American Football. I still remember when this album came out. I listened to it on a plane the day after it was released, and I absolutely loved it. This album is just so good. The band lean into more of a spacey, dreamy, post-rock influenced sound while still keeping a lot of attributes from their second and first albums. Silhouettes is one of the best opening tracks I've ever heard, with its ringing bells in the opening section and then an absolute explosion into a beautiful atmosphere that perfectly sets up the rest of the album. It's an absolutely beautiful and amazing song. Every song on this album is really just incredible, with the band diving into some longer songs like on Stay Home from their debut. Uncomfortably Numb is a great somber single with Hayley Williams of Paramore kind of doing a duet with Mike, and it really sounds just beautiful. Gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. I love the inclusion of female vocalists on a lot of these songs. It gives the album another layer that the others didn't have. I Can Feel You is another personal favorite that I get stuck in my head quite a bit from time to time. Heir Apparent is a great song with quite good lyrics. The band are definitely not the most lyrically interesting, but on this song I really like the picture that the lyrics paint. Honestly, this album is right up there with LP1 as my favorite American Football project. It's so unique and dreamy. Life Support is probably my favorite closing track from the band, with a guitar riff that's kind of reminiscent of Radiohead's Let Down. The vibraphone throughout this album is also really cool, and say it with me, atmospheric. This album is a true feat from the band, and I really hope that they continue making music like this. So there you have it. Those are the 3 albums and 1 EP of American Football. The same year as LP3, the band released a collection of old demos called Year 1 Demos, which sucks because it isn't called American Football. This EP is nothing really special. It's just very early demos of classic American football tracks like The Summer Ends and 5 Silent Miles, as well as a track called Song 1, Song 2, which is a pretty cool instrumental track, but again, nothing super special. This year, Steve Lamos left the band to do other stuff. Steve Lamos, more like Steve Lamos. I've been wanting to make that joke for years, so moving on from my genius pun, I love this band. They have such a unique sound that I think has actually inspired a few great indie bands. I'm really excited to see what's next for the band. I think LP3 really gave some good groundwork for a possible future in their discography. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I love making these discography review videos about artists I love, because that means I can talk about them to you guys and not have to annoy the people around me constantly by spouting out random facts and opinions about them. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!